Hey, you all. Carpetbagger here, coming to you live from the north. More specifically, we are in Valparaiso, Indiana, the town that I grew up in, and come up here for the Christmas season. Gonna be celebrating Christmas with my family over the next couple days. Tonight is the festivities are my brother's birthday, where we go have a traditional Japanese steakhouse dinner to celebrate my brother's birthday. I think we're doing White Elephant today because that's the one day that everyone's going to be around, and then doing the next day at my grandmother's. So a lot of family stuff, but I did want to come over here and reminisce a little while I was in town. I am standing in front of 209 North Campbell Street here in Valparaiso, Indiana. That's a house that I grew up in. My mom sold the house a few years back now and bought her current residence. But as I was growing up here in Valparaiso, that's the house that I grew up in. I didn't want to get up there too close in their business because it does look like there are people living there. They're decorated for Christmas. Also, the house was a brick house. It still is a brick house, but they've painted gray over top the brick. It was like a natural red brick house that I grew up in, and that right there, that's my old bedroom window, where I would look out onto the street, would watch traffic go by in from my bedroom. Lots of nights spent up there in that room playing NES, Nintendo Entertainment System, on a black and white television set. And I would enjoy watching. That's one thing. Enjoying this. This street is relatively busy for a small town, Campbell Street. If I remember sitting up there and listening to the cars. And to this day, the sound of traffic is still relaxing. Still relaxing to me. And the neighborhood looks really different. These giant condos right here, these are new. This used to be a Catholic school, St. Paul's, and that is gone, and it has been replaced by these towering condominiums. See, down the street there, doing some more construction. Yeah, Campbell Street's looking different. Weird. It's weird, weird to go back to some place you spent so much time and have it look so different. Like you guys don't know because you didn't see it before, but yeah, this was a big parking lot here, and the school was set back there, and now these giant condos. Now, to reminisce today, I thought a fun thing to do would be to walk my old paper routes. Yeah, it was my first job I ever had. I got a paper route when I was in 5th grade. I remember one of my good friends, he got himself a paper route, and he called me up. He's like, "You got to get a paper route." I was like, why? And he said that he was making $100 a month. And I was like, wait, what? Really? I hardly believed him. $100 a month, that seemed incredibly wealthy to me at the time. It seemed like an almost unreasonable amount of money. To be able to possess $100 back in those days when I was my age seemed almost unrealistic. I got $3 a week for an allowance, and my mom asked that I put $1.50 of that into savings. So if I wanted to rent a movie or a video game at the video store, I had to save for 2 weeks. In order to get that. So if I got a paper route, I could rent all the video games that I wanted, and no one could say no. Now, my mom, I think, did want me to put a little bit of my paper route money away, but it came up there close to $100 a month. So I was blown away by being able to have actual money that I could spend on things, that I could buy things. And it was just like my first taste of real freedom in this world was my 5th grade paper route. And it was right there in front of the house where they would drop off the newspapers. Generally, they would be right there. I would sit in the house and look outside waiting for the papers to come. When they switched to a morning delivery, we originally delivered in the afternoon, but they switched it to a morning system. So I would sit in there, sit on the heating vent, half awake, just waiting for them to drop those papers so I could get out here and get it done as fast as I could before school. And then, of course, if the papers don't show up or they're late, you have to call the office and say, hey, the papers aren't here. Or sometimes the paper showed up and there wasn't enough papers, and I'd have to call the office. It was a whole thing. And the worst was the Sunday papers. The Sunday papers were huge, and sometimes you even had to reconstruct them. They would have two piles. You had to take the paper, and then you have something to insert into the paper, put it together, and I couldn't put them all in my paper bag. I wanted to wear my paper bag today, but it's actually back in North Carolina. So most days I could fit my papers on all of my bag and take it to go deliver, but on Sundays that was unreasonable. I had to actually have a red wagon that had full of my papers that I would pull. I hated Sundays, because Sundays, even when we had the afternoon delivery, Sunday papers still had to go out in the morning. I've never been a morning person, so I would have to get up early on Sunday morning. And that was, really just a bummer. Friday and Saturday, the weekend, so exciting, but then you can't stay up too late on Saturday because you got to get up Sunday and deliver papers. And as you see, it's snowy. This is a relatively cold climate here in northern Indiana, so sometimes you have to get up in the snow, get my snow pants on, my boots, my hat, my scarf, bundle up, and then drag a big wagon full of newspapers with me to go deliver. Now, I had two different paper routes at two different times. My first paper route is actually a little bit of a walk from the house. House is back there. And then later I get a paper route that was closer to the house. So we're just walked here on the first paper route. So there's a little bit of space here before we start delivering papers. To walk along, and yeah, it was, so delivering papers is not a good job. It's not good. It's it's about an hour work a day, which is good. So I figured out, that was a crazy amount of money for an hour work a day. So 30 hours, you make $100 back then in the early 90s. And but the thing is, you could not call the paper route. You couldn't call the office, and I worked for a paper called the Vidette Messenger, and so you couldn't just call and say, I'm going to be sick, I can't deliver papers. And one issue was that I did spend a significant time away from home. I would go visit my dad, who lived about 3 hours away in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So the thing is, if I left, I had to find someone to do my paper route for me. So a lot of times that would be my little sister, who really was too young to do it. So really, when I got my little sister to do it, it was more my mom. My mom did it and took my little sister with her when she did it. So yeah, I don't think my mom really enjoyed having to do the paper route. She was working full time. She was taking care of a family, cooking, cleaning, doing laundry, and delivering newspapers. This old Civil War era house here. One of my mom's best friends used to live here, and the paper route was my first official job, but probably one of the early, quote unquote jobs I had was coming over here when my mom's friend was not available. I would let her, she had an English bulldog, and I would come and let him out, go to the bathroom if she was working late. You could see those angels there. I think when I was younger, those angels actually weren't painted all white. They actually were painted in a flesh color, they were painted like actual angels. But yeah, I think it was actually, even when I had my paper route, I would come and let the dog out. The dog would see me. Remember, his name was Abraham Winkin, the dog, and he would come up, English Bulldog. He would look out the window and say when he saw me coming. So that was kind of a supplemental income, helping let the dog out over here. And you can see actually kind of wrapped around behind the house is where they extended the middle school. They actually wanted to bulldoze the house, get rid of it, but the owner refused to sell, and the local historic group got behind her, and they actually just ended up building around her house instead, which, you know, I agree with. I'm all for saving historic buildings. Matter of fact, I would have rather them demolish this building, the middle school, because I hated it. Middle school, man, one of the crappiest times of my entire life was going to this stupid, crappy middle school. Benjamin Franklin Middle School, known in those days as BF. Yeah, I go to BF, that's what I would say. BF. Yeah, my time as a middle school student, not the happiest time in my life, was pretty bad. Got to the point of pretty much constant bullying when I was middle school age. Just really a miserable time. I actually moved at the time to go live with my dad in Milwaukee, partially just to get away from the intense bullying that went on at this school. And, you know, quite frankly, no one did anything about it. You know, shame on the school. They do nothing to help deal with the problem whatsoever. Maybe it's better now. Maybe they've got better administration, but completely turned a blind eye. Kid goes to school every morning and fearful for their physical and mental well-being, and it is just allowed. They're allowed to be bullied and harassed. Got to the point where I kind of had to learn to you know, you had to fight back, which I don't know if that's good or bad, but pretty much had to learn to fight back in order to deal with bullies. And then, of course, even as a grown man, had to deal with bullies on YouTube. That was something I was not used to. That's something I was not ready for when I got on YouTube. Is it turns out the bullies, they grew up, they went and lived in their mother's basements, and then they just bully people online all the day. Yeah, it sucks. It sucks. You know, being a kid, when I was a kid, I was very small, very weak, and just got knocked around every day. It sucked. I'm glad I made it out of it. I'm glad I survived it, and glad that's not what my life is anymore. I'm not sure where I'm going with that. I just thought it sucked. Actually says Valparaiso High School up there. It's not the high school, but this was the high school at one point. And just over the past, 50 years, they've never got around to changing the sign. Now, my other friend who had the paper route before me, that convinced me to get a paper route, this was actually his paper route. He came out in front of the middle school and delivered papers, and then around the corner there down that way, he would also deliver papers. And sometimes we would cover for each other. It didn't always work out, but sometimes I would do both paper routes, or he would do both paper routes. Did I mention how much this school sucks? Remember this house here used to have a goose out front, like a statue of a goose, and the goose would be wearing different clothes depending on the season, depending on the holiday. Sometimes he'd be wearing a raincoat. I remember that. He'd dress up, for Christmas or whatever. I was hoping the goose would still be here, but alas, the goose has moved on. So I think, we are on the paper route. Of course, not everyone got the paper. I would get a daily printout that would show any changes, if there was new subscribers, or if people stopped getting the paper. I can't remember if I mentioned this already, but paper that I delivered for was called the Vidette Messenger. Later became the Byte at Times, and then now it doesn't even exist. And there was one thing I really hated about the paper out, is we had to do collections. So as the paper boy, it was actually my responsibility to collect the money to send to the office. So and basically I had to keep everything beyond that. I had a little zip pouch that I put the money in, and I was a 5th grade kid. I was not very assertive. So some people would just ignore me. Some people would be like, I already paid. And I remember we had to tear a little coupon book. We had to tear it out, receipts, give them receipts if they had, if they paid. Some people went like 6 months without paying, and I didn't know what to do. So I didn't even know that I needed to call and let the office know if people just weren't paying. I just kept trying. I would be like, yeah, you haven't paid in 6 months. And they're like, oh, that's ridiculous. It was just, I was easy to ignore because I was just a little kid, and they blew me off. They didn't. So yeah, that was the miserable part of it. Fortunately, I think later they stopped doing that, where I wasn't actually responsible for collecting the money, because that was the most miserable time. And I hated it. When I was that age, I was so nervous. I had such high anxiety about strangers, about people. I would get, when I was a kid, I got nervous going into a store, because I got nervous even going up to the counter and buying something, because I was just that, I was an anxious kid. Didn't like having to talk to people. So to have to knock at people's door, sit there nervous, not knowing who's going to answer, and then have a person, not a person, push me around or not give me any money. It was scary. I remember a lot of people just got a lot of free newspapers from me when I was a kid. I guess I was paying their newspaper bill as a 5th grader, because I was just too afraid to push the issue. Oh, here's a concrete goose. I guess it's possible this could be the same goose. Maybe it just moved from the end of the street down here, quit wearing human clothes. But at least we saw a goose today. These are apartments here, little apartments. I only delivered to one of the apartments, and they were never home because the couple that lived there worked 3rd shift, so I could almost never catch them. And if I did catch them, they were wearing their pajamas. This does bring back a lot of memories. Walking this route every day after school. Yeah, I remember delivered to this house. I think I delivered to this house as well. And when you deliver to the houses, sometimes in the movies, people the paper boys riding by on a bike, throwing the papers into the yards. We weren't allowed to do that. We had to come up onto the porch to deliver the paper onto the porch. Sometimes they would have notes on the sheet where they wanted their newspaper delivered. So a lot of times you're hanging it on their mailbox, or some people wanted you to open their door and close it in the door. None of that. Always looked fun. I always liked that Nintendo game, Paperboy, where you threw the papers at people. And yeah, I think it was this house up here where I was delivering papers every day, and they wouldn't answer to pay their bill. And I kept coming back, and there would just be piles of papers getting wet. They wouldn't even read their papers. And eventually I told my mom, what do I do? They don't read their papers, they don't pay their bill. And my mom asked where it was, and I told her, and she said, yeah, the man that lived there, he died. He's dead. He can't read his papers because he's died. And I had to call the office and said, well, my mom told me they're dead. They don't want papers anymore because they're dead. And then I didn't have to deliver there anymore. And this is Grove Street, the longest street on my route. And I delivered down there to that house, but then turned this way. Yeah, this was a big one because I had both sides of the street here that I had to deliver to. Oh boy, I remember you getting up here to the hill and looking down at all the houses and just thinking about how long it's going to take to deliver all these papers. Again, especially if I had the wagon with me. The wagon slowed me down tremendously. Just heard some dogs barking. Oh, yeah, I heard some dogs barking as I went by that house. That was another thing that really bothered me, was the dogs. I was terrified of big barking dogs when I was that age. Yeah, there'd be some times where there'd just be like snarling, not necessarily this house, but there'd just be like snarling dogs at a door, and I would just be like, I didn't even want to go up onto the porch because I was afraid they'd like burst through and devour me. Yeah, this is kind of disorientating a little bit because some of the houses look the same. Some of the houses have been remodeled or changed. So I'm like having memories bounce around in my head, but I'm not having trouble placing which houses they came from. Remember, it was one of these houses over in this general area where I would put their paper in the door, and there was a windstorm and it blew their door off, and they told me to please not leave their door open, because I'd wedged the paper in there so the door would be a little bit ajar, and apparently it blew open and their door blew off. So they said, please don't do that anymore, so we don't want our door to blow off. Yeah, it's been a long time. Been a long time since I did these paper rounds. I think some of the houses have changed colors. A lot of the houses just don't look the same. I should have recorded a video of me doing my paper route. I think that's one regret I have, is not vlogging when I was in 5th grade with my video camera. I did have a video camera. My grandma would lend me her video camera so I could make videos at home. I'm trying to think which house was the one that I blew the door off of. Might be this white one right here. And also this white one here, they had a wasp nest on their porch, and it scared me because I didn't want to get stung by wasps. So I was always like really anxious about delivering here because of the wasps. Man, I was a nervous kid, I will tell you what. Afraid of dogs, afraid of wasps, afraid of having to knock on people's doors. Maybe delivering papers wasn't a good job for me, since I hated talking to strangers. I hated being bitten by dogs, and I hated being stung by wasps. And there was these two houses here were on my route, and then we crossed the street over here. Yeah, this is the kind, this is just the kind of the neighborhood, the environment I grew up in. You know, the suburban neighborhoods here, where everyone's house is right next to each other, where you can walk down the street on the sidewalk. Yeah, like the rural areas, you have to have a car to deliver papers. That wasn't kids' work. That was adult work to drive around and deliver newspaper by car. Sometimes, if it was super cold, I could talk my mom or someone else into driving me out so they could run, deliver a couple papers, get back in the van where it was warm. I like to do that, especially that dreaded Sunday morning because sometimes the papers were so big they wouldn't all fit in my wagon. So if I'm like, Mom, I can't even fit these in my wagon, so we would load up the family minivan and deliver from there. Yeah, I remember these houses here. I had a friend that came with me sometimes on my paper route, and then these people got mad because he walked in their flower bed and stomped on some of their flowers. Remember this house here? It was this one was always green. Yeah, you just hear dogs barking everywhere. Don't remember this big black house here. Looks kind of an interesting house. Just the black colors of it. Looks like one of the houses in Salem. Yeah, these gray skies make me nostalgic. So, got a lot of gray skies out here in northern Indiana. Now this is my friend Denny's house growing up. He doesn't live here anymore. He's a grown man. It doesn't look like, I don't know if anyone lives here right now, but yeah, I would deliver papers to him and his family, and then sometimes he would come and chat with me while we were doing the paper route, and then later he got his own paper route. So yeah, a lot of my friends, it kind of was a growing virus. Everyone wanted their own paper route so they could have their own money. So yeah, but I forget where Denny's paper route was exactly. I remember this tree. It's like saggy looking tree here. And just like little tiny things triggering memories. Now I remember near the end of the paper, during certain time of the year, like this time of year, it would get dark, 4:30 here, it would be black as night. So yeah, a lot of times if I didn't hurry, I think that this time I'd pretty much always be dark coming home from my paper route. But yeah, I'd always try to rush, try to hurry. I didn't want to have to walk home in the dark. I hated walking home in the dark. I was scared of the dark, specifically because I was afraid of UFOs and aliens. And I'm not joking. I was really interested in UFO. I'm still interested in UFOs and aliens, but back then I would watch sightings on Fox and watch different documentaries about UFOs. I was really fascinated. But then when it got dark outside, I was always looking for UFOs. So I didn't like it. If it got dark before I got home, I was just always anxious about UFOs. So, afraid of the dark, afraid of UFOs, afraid of talking to people, afraid of wasps and dogs. I think we've covered all my major fears right there. But it was actually, I don't know, I would sit there and I'd look for UFOs, or hope there wasn't any UFOs up there. And it was actually in my own yard. I remember walking back from a paper route and I was particularly spooked. And then when I got in my mom's yard, I saw like something like a triangle fly over top me. This is like my official UFO sighting, and I remember it blocked out the stars. It was a starry night, and I think it might have been like a stealth bomber or something like that flew over me, just because of the shape and how quiet it was. But I remember that scared the dickens out of me. That made me not want to be outside. That really made me want to not be out after dark doing my paper route. Because you do it, I get home after school, you want to relax a little bit, have a snack, then you got to get out. I think we were supposed to have the paper route done by 5, and by 4:30 it was dark. So really chasing burning daylight when trying to get it done, get home inside. And you don't like to get up in people's porches and stuff when it's dark. You can't see what's going on. It just gets spooky. I mean, walking around these streets in the dark as a little kid, a little defenseless little kid, is kind of spooky. Remember the lady that lived in this house? She had 2 little Yorkshire Terriers. I remember the time they were the smallest dogs I'd ever seen. I could almost not believe how tiny the dogs were. And she'd be out walking them. And then over here was another dog that I remember. The gentleman that lived here, he had a dog, and I was actually delivering papers up there to the little apartment building, and the dog was running across the street. There was cars coming, and I saw the dog running through the cars. I was like horrified because I thought someone was going to run over the dog, and then someone did run over the dog. It was horrible, but the dog was okay. This like traumatized me and surprised me at the same time, because the dog was right about, let me see, the dog was right about there, and the car like tried to slow down, and it ran over the dog's back leg and tail, and I saw it from over there, my vantage point. I saw the tires go over the legs and tail of the dog, and the dog yelped really loud, like it hurt, because it probably did. And the dog jumped up, and the dog ran back to its owner, who was on the porch, and the dog seemed fine. The owner like checked his tail, checked his legs, and he's like, yeah, he's fine, because the person felt bad, asking if the dog was okay. Man's like, yeah, he's okay. So I learned right here that you can run over a dog and it won't necessarily die. I still don't know. There's probably some physics involved and how the tires move or something that explains why the dog wasn't crushed, because it didn't really like stop on top of the dog. It just kind of kept rolling. So yeah, that always fascinates. It still fascinates me. I can still remember like the image burned in my mind of those tires going over those dog's legs. It's just a busy road here. So when I first had the paper route, I had one more paper to deliver here on Ridgeland Street, and it was a house that was like halfway down the street, and it was the only house on the entire street I had to deliver to. It turns out that the person that had the paper out before me lived on Ridgeland, and so they used to deliver to their own house, but when they gave up the paper out and I took it, their house stayed on my route. So I would have to walk down, especially in the dark. I had to walk down. So I'm already freaked out about the dark, already wanting to get home, and then I have to walk down Ridgeland Street to deliver a single paper. And Ridgeland Street gets super spooky and dark at night. Oh, don't want to slip on some ice. But the ice reminds me, there was one time I did my paper route, and it was so icy on my paper route that on 3 separate occasions I slipped and landed flat on my back. That happened 3 times on one day doing my paper route. Slipped 3 times, landed on my back, and then, believe it or not, for whatever reason, later that day I fell down the stairs at home, and that's probably why to this day my back still hurts sometimes. You had to walk half down Ridgeland Street here in the dark. And eventually, at some point I did, because I'm a kid, I don't know like how to fix these things. So I finally talked to my mom about it. My mom told me I needed to call the office and ask them if they could take it off. And they did. But like, yeah, as a kid, I was afraid to ask about these things. I just wanted to follow directions, didn't want to rock the boat and ask, why am I delivering to one house that's completely off my paper route? But we got that resolved eventually. And then that would begin the long walk home to my house again. If it was wintertime, it's dark. It's dark by now. Walking home in the dark by myself. In 5th grade. So I had to backtrack, walk back in front of the middle school. Now, I don't remember how long I had the paper route. It only could have been a few years. And I don't remember if I kept it much further into middle school. Of course, when you're a kid, you know, your sense of time is different, so it feels like I had this paper route for years and years and years, but it could have just been 1 or 2 years that I did that paper route. I know I definitely when I moved to my dad's, when I was in 8th grade, I know, obviously I couldn't have had my paper out then. And I think during that time, I did start to spend more time at my dad's. I started to spend the whole summers there. And so I'm sure I couldn't, I couldn't leave my paper out for 3 months with a substitute. So I probably gave it up once I started visiting my dad's more and spending the summers with my dad. I don't mean to be so negative about middle school. It was just a really, really hard time for me. And it was, kids can be really, really cruel. And once kids identify you as a victim, they just kind of pile on. So, if one or two kids start being mean to you, then other kids join in. And it's just a really yucky feeling, just walking down the hall and someone will say something nasty to you, or you sit down in class and the kid next to you is like, oh, don't touch me, you're gross. It's just, it's not an environment that anyone should have to deal with. I don't know. I don't know if things are still that bad. I think my children had a better experience in school than I had. And I know that I've talked to other adults who actually had a good time when they were in middle school. But I did not. It was, like I said, just constant bullying. It was, and those things stick with you as an adult. They form who you are and how you feel about yourself. Just having everyone tell you how much they hate you all day long for no real reason is just really just kind of messes with your head. Therapy, that's what I recommend. Therapy helped me through it. Therapy helped, like I said, some issues popped up when I first started YouTube where people were harassing me, people harassing my family, people were bullying me, bullying my family. And that was really hard because it was kind of all these bad feelings from middle school coming back up to the surface, things that I thought that I had left in the past. But so that hurt me really, hit me really hard, and there was a lot I had to deal with back then. When I started my YouTube channel about, again, therapy. That's what worked for me in kind of dealing with these things and putting them past me and trying to have a more focus on the future and positive things in my life. And we head back over here towards the house I grew up in. So I did go and live with my dad for a year or so, and then I did come back here to Valparaiso to go to high school. And I still had a lot of trouble in high school. It wasn't bullying. High school wasn't necessarily a place full of bullies. I think kids had matured a little bit by then, but some things were a little better in that sense, but in some other ways, that whole period of my life was a little rough. But when I was living back here, when I moved back into this house, I decided to get another paper route. Now the papers had changed. Now they were being delivered in the morning, and I was actually able to get a paper out that was actually on my own street. So I would actually leave right from here and was able to start delivering papers immediately. So unlike the last one where I had to walk a few blocks to even get started, I could just walk down this way, and here we are. We're on my paper route here. What street is this? I forget the name of the street. I shouldn't forget the name of the street because I grew up on this street. But it's Campbell is that street there in front. That's where my house was. But just cut down the side here and start delivering papers. Deliver paper to these houses over here. Of course, like I said, the old problem was getting back in time before it got dark. Now it was getting up while it was still dark and coming out here and delivering papers. Again, I'm not a morning person. I don't know why I thought it was a good idea. I think eventually I quit because I just could not deal with getting up in the morning and delivering papers just before school. I had a hard time getting up in time for school, and now I was inserting an entire hour's worth of work before I even got on the bus. I don't know why I thought that was a good idea. This didn't last for that long. So that's the back of the house I grew up in. They've got like fencing up now where you can't really see into the backyard. And then these are our neighbors here. Delivered to them. They have the little Indiana carved into the walkway. And there's a coin there. I forget what the significance of the coin was. There's also a little marker here. Oh yeah, a little a dime or something there where Valparaiso is. And the neighbors that we had growing up don't live here anymore, but I think they were the ones that put in the little Indiana right there. And my uncle, my mom's brother, lived here for a period of time. Occasionally he would ask me to feed his dogs or to stop by and let his dogs out. And this house over here, this yellow house, this was my friend Billy's house. He was my best friend in kindergarten. And the house there actually has an elevator in it. His mother had some health problems, so they installed a small elevator in their house. And I remember being mystified by this as a child. I wanted so bad to ride it. Apparently, the kids didn't really ride it because it was reserved for the mom. But one night I asked nicely, and his mom took me up in the elevator. It was very tiny. It was like a little broom closet elevator. The tiniest elevator I've ever been in. I wonder if the elevator's still in there. Yeah, me and Billy, it got a little older. We didn't really remain as close of friends. But I remember his dad. His dad ran for mayor of the town, and then he lost. He didn't win. He wasn't elected mayor. And then I think they moved to Alaska, if I'm remembering correctly. And then I delivered to these houses here. And I told you, I was talking earlier about the time I fell on the ice. And it was this paper route that I fell on the ice. And I remember one of the times of the three I fell was right here. Right here. And it's funny because you can see they've got some extra salt down here. So possible that I wasn't not the first person to slip on the ice, or the last person, for that matter, to slip on the ice here. And I can't escape this middle school. Here is the field. This is where we had a gym class. Here are the trains. The trains going through town. Always found the sound of the trains relaxing. But what I did not find relaxing was gym class. Oh my gosh. Some miserable times occurred out here for me. I remember doing stupid laps around this stupid track. I was the second slowest kid in class. The slowest was my friend Denny. But I was right in front of him. The two of us trailing. I was a little faster than him. But not by much. So I'd be trotting, and that's in school. You get bullied or back then you would get bullied if you were not athletic, if you were not good at sports, if you did not like sports, and I did not like sports at all. You would get bullied for being bad at sports. If you were on a team, they put you on teams. If you screw up, if you're not good at kickball, then everyone else gets mad at you, and it's humiliating. It's in front of everyone. And then I always remember the gym clothes, the green shirt, the green shorts, as you run around this. So many laps, so many miserable laps have been taken around this out here. Ugh. It makes my skin crawl. Now, I do remember when I had this paper route that it was a little easier to find someone to sub in for me if I needed. There was another gentleman who had a paper. He was a grown adult, and he seemed to be happy too. I remember he contacted me. He wanted to, have an agreement that we could help each other out, covering each other's paper routes when necessary. So I know he filled in a few times, so that was good. I didn't have to get my sister to do it for me. Yes, this paper route had just like a couple little side streets going down Madison. Okay, Chestnut. I don't know why I couldn't think of that. Chestnut was the street we were just walking down. And then Madison here, just like a little street here, has a dead end there because that's where the park is, Jesse Pfeiffer Park, which is kind of cool because it's like a hidden park. You kind of have to know about it in order to get there. Now, I definitely remember this house here. There was an older lady living here at the time. Yes, there's an elderly woman lived here, and it seemed like she had a little trouble getting around. Remember, she kind of had some hoarding going on, where you went into the house, and there was there's like a little path where she had her table and her TV, so you had to kind of like fit through like the boxes and stuff that she had stored in there. And she really was friendly. Like, she really was happy to see me. If I showed up and needed to collect money, oh man, I would be in there for 20-30 minutes because she she'd want to talk. She just probably just didn't get to see a lot of people, so was happy to have someone to talk to. But as a kid, I was really nervous because I had a limited time to get the papers delivered. I had a limited time that especially when it switched to mornings, I had to be to school. So it was always like, she'd always want me to come in. Sometimes she would even want me to come in, even if I wasn't collecting money. And then one time, she asked me, I remember she got a little mad at me because she asked me if I would shovel her walk every morning while I was on my paper route. When I delivered the paper, if I could shovel her walk. And I simply did not have time. Like, at this point, I was like barely making it home to get on the bus, so I couldn't do it. And I had to tell her that I couldn't do it, and she got kind of like mad at me. She thought that I needed to help her out, and honestly, it wasn't a matter. It was simply a matter of like time. Like, I did not have the time to stop and shovel a walk in the morning. Like I said, I was barely making it back. And I think that's why I quit the paper route, just because I was just having so much trouble getting back to the house in time for the bus. Probably part of it was me just not getting up soon enough, not getting up fast enough. But yeah, down here at the end of the street, we have Jesse Pfeiffer Park. So like I said, yeah, there's no like real entrance. It's like sandwiched in between all these different streets and neighborhoods. So if you kind of had to know about it. There was no way to really see this unless you lived in the area. So this is the park we always came to. This was the park. If we said we wanted to go to the park, this is what we were talking about when we were kids. So yeah, you can see the back sides of the houses over there. The back sides of the houses over there. So these are all like the backyards right here leading into the park. And I'm not going to go down there today, but all the equipment, all the playground equipment that I had when I was a kid has been replaced with more safe, less fun equipment. We had like a merry-go-round down there. We had some metal animals that you could ride. Those are all gone. It does look like that kids are continuing the tradition of sledding down the hill. You can see the sled marks there. I do remember coming out here when there was snow, and there would just be like 100 kids here, all going up right there and then sliding down. Just an endless cascade of kids on sleds. Now, I do remember I did do this paper route for some time in the daylight. So it was after I came back from high school. I started doing this after school, and then they switched it to mornings. And I think that's when I just really decided I couldn't do it. I don't know how long I did mornings. I don't think that lasted very long, honestly. I think I was happy doing this after school, but when they switched to mornings, yeah, it was too much for me. But it was nice. It was nice having it when just get off school, come out here, deliver some papers. Wouldn't take me too long. I think I'd get this one done a lot faster. Not only was it closer, but I think it's a little bit smaller than my OG paper route. I don't remember all these mini libraries when I had the paper out. Yeah, I would come up here, would cut down this street here, and delivered papers to this little row of houses down this way, and then cut back this way on Chestnut. Now this house here, when I was growing up, we called the cat house because it was absolutely infested with cats. Remember, you would go by and you would see cats coming out from underneath the house, going in through the roof, and for some reason the grass wouldn't grow. It was all black and muddy, and the house was like, there was more trees. It was all cluttered with trees, and it smelled so bad. It smelled like cat urine, so much that if you were sitting on that side of the street, you could still smell the cat smell. And then one day they looked like they were going to tear it down. They tore it down to its very foundation. It was just the very basics. I think these pillars were still here, but all the wood was gone. And then they just rebuilt the house right back on the old foundation. I guess it was just so soaked with cat and mess that they just had to give it fresh wood. But it looks much nicer in these modern times. And I noticed this on top of the street signs now. I showed you the park, the hidden park behind all these houses. It's called Jesse Pfeiffer Park. And now they put a sign on top of the street signs. This is a Jesse Pfeiffer neighborhood. So Jesse Pfeiffer neighborhood, I guess, is the official name for my old neighborhood. Now I head up Chicago Street for the last little bit of houses on the old route. And the last house on my route has actually been torn down, demolished, because right here on the corner was the St. Paul Church Rectory. This is where the priests lived for St. Paul's Church. That is gone. Yeah, because over here where the condos are, like I mentioned, that was the St. Paul's School. Now it is called St. Paul Square. But all the priests used to live here together in a big house. And yeah, that's gone. As is, the entire school here. Now you can see the little sign there on the corner. There it does say St. Paul Square. So I guess that is just a tribute to the church and school that used to be here. I don't know if St. Paul's Church exists in some other form currently, but yeah, they named the square after what they tore down. I don't know what they're building over here. Look like they're building a couple townhouses. So yeah, my old neighborhood. This is what it looks like now. Last three houses here are three that have always been here. since since I was growing up. The house I grew up in was over 100 years old, so that's been there forever. But it looks like they're the last three standing. All this new stuff coming in. Hopefully these don't find themselves on the chopping block to make more condos. So thank you for joining me here as we traverse my old paper routes. Some good memories, some bad memories, and some in-between memories. Yeah, definitely a lot coming back. Sometimes you see like a house or a tree or something, and it like triggers a memory. But I'm going to be spending time with my family next couple days, enjoying our Christmas trip here. Hoping to film some things later in the week around the area. Still looking into a few things I may want to check out, and then hoping to be back home by New Year's. I think the idea is we're going to do New Year's in Gatlinburg again this year. We had a lot of fun last year, so I think me and Jen are going to head over there. And then got some ideas cooking for the new year. I'm going to be talking about those in an upcoming video and see what you guys think about them. I think next year might look a little different than the previous years have looked here on the Carpetbagger channel. So thank you guys so much for watching this. I appreciate you guys following along, watching these videos. If you do like them, consider subscribing. It'll notify you when new videos are out. Of course, new videos come out about every day or so. If you subscribe, it does help me out. And if you'd like to help the channel out in other ways, consider contributing to Patreon. $3 or more gets you a postcard once a month from me to you. Also, we have enamel pins, press pennies, motel key fobs, stickers, all sorts of fun stuff in the Etsy shop. And still doing personalized messages on Cameo. If you're interested in one of those, you can check the description below. And all those help keep this train on the track, this boat in the water, and this dirigible in the air. Until next time, my friends, this one's in the bag.